Hi everybody, it's Rosemary. Today I want to keep going with the topic from last week. And the thing I chose to focus on, because there's a lot of cultural triggers for anxiety in the US, but I was talking about how the fact that we all care so much what other people think of us. Today I wanted to talk about the flip side of that. Remember this book? The Feeling Good Handbook? Well, one of these 10 cognitive distortions that he highlights is called jumping to conclusions, and there's two subtypes: mind reading and fortune telling. Fortune telling is when you think you know something's going to happen but you don't really know. And the other is mind reading. It says, without checking it out, you arbitrarily conclude that someone is reacting negatively to you. So a lot of times we think we know, or we imagine, that someone else is thinking something about us, and oftentimes something bad about us. Today I just wanted to highlight the fact that so often we get caught up on this idea like, oh, they must think I'm a horrible professional, or oh, I bet he's thinking I'm not as attractive as my friend, or oh, you know, so-and-so thinks that I did a bad job on my presentation, or, you know, we think these things. Oftentimes we worry about people we know and people we don't know having a negative reaction to us, and a lot of times this is really baseless. But how many times do we actually think, oh, maybe they're thinking that I am the best student in this class. Maybe they're thinking that I'm, you know, the best linguist ever. Maybe so-and-so is thinking that I'm really attractive. How often do we think those things? Because isn't that equally possible, that they're thinking good things about us compared to bad things? Okay, I'm going to tell you two examples. One of somebody I know and one of somebody I don't know, to prove this point. So, if you watched the video some weeks ago, I think like 4 weeks ago, where I think it's called "What is Anxiety? I Sometimes Experience It at the Gynecologist's." And I was talking about how I went to get an STD check, and I mentioned that there's a guy that I had a crush on, because I had this whole little anxiety feeling of, oh, what if my STD check was positive? Then he would never be interested in me and all of that, right? But it was just a guy I had a crush on. It was just in my mind. As far as I knew, he didn't know anything about that, other than the fact I was cyber-stalking him. Well, that guy asked me out, and now he's actually my boyfriend. So that's why I look all happier now. Anyway, this is what blows my mind. It turns out that that guy also had a crush on me for like a while. And in my mind, he barely even knew that I was alive. So maybe there's a guy or a girl or whoever, and you think they don't even know you're alive. You think that, oh, well, there's no way they would be interested in me. Well, maybe they are interested in you. Maybe you're both thinking, oh, they would never be interested in me, but both of you are actually interested. So there's one case. It's pretty immediate for me. But I'm going to tell you a more detailed story about somebody I didn't know. And this is actually a story that's in a different book. I have plans for many books, and I've been writing things for them for many years. Well, the book that right now I'm trying to get people interested is called The Dirty Girl: Coming of Age in a Hoarding Household, and it's mostly about my life from like birth to age 22, let's say. And it's about, you know, growing up with a parent with hoarding disorder, how that affected me, and choices I made in life. And I have ideas for like 3 other books, but the one I've really worked a lot on already is another book. I think it might actually be even better. It's called La Vida de Ascona, which means Ascona's widow, and it's about my life since my husband died when I was 35. And so it's about grief and things you go through when someone dies, but it's also about like looking for love around the world. All the adventures one has when one is so disposed. Well, okay, so this is a story of something that happened days after my husband died in 2006. And so it was in the afternoon, and we went down to our favorite restaurant, Jenny Lowe's. And, you know, me and my husband have been going there since well before my daughter was born. So it's like, in a way, they had this little window in our lives, the people who worked there. Like, they didn't see us at home or in other contexts. They only ever saw us sitting at a table eating Cantonese food. But still, they saw us over the course of 14 years. And, you know, dating and young married couple. Well, I was young. Anyway, he looked young. And, you know, then being pregnant and then having a little baby who, you know, eventually grew into a 5-year-old. And so this waitress who, I don't think she wasn't waiting on us that day, but she knew us. She heard, you know, from one of her coworkers. Because I think what happened is, you know, they say, oh, one of the people, like our wait person, they said, oh, you know, and where's Henry? And I said, you know, he died last Thursday. And, you know, and then this word spreads. So this other waitress, Ling, she came over to like give us her condolences. And she like opened her mouth to talk, but she actually couldn't talk. Like the words would not come out. And I could see that she was tearing up. And I mean, it really meant a lot to me. Like, actually, the tears meant more than any words that she could have said, because I'm like, wow, you know, she cares enough that she's having this emotional reaction. And it's like, they've seen us over all of these years. They have a sense of who we are and who our family is, and, you know, the loss that my daughter and I have suffered. And it really touched me, you know, when she teared up. And then, you know, my daughter, who's 5, at the time, she, you know, she was processing that death the way that 5-year-olds process those things. And, you know, she knew that her father had died. At least she knew those words. I'm not sure what she actually understood about what that meant. And she knew that his body was going to be turned into ashes, you know, through cremation. And because, you know, I mean, at the time I was pretty clueless, but the professionals that I was talking to, they said, you know, you should give her real information and, you know, help her to start processing this. So Ling's standing there crying, not able to speak. And then my daughter fills in the gap of silence, and she says to her, my daddy died, my daddy turned to ashes. And that probably made her cry even more, but I like turned to my daughter. I'm like, yeah, that's right. You know, he did die, and yes, he did turn to ashes. That's right. And, you know, so, you know, we finish our meal, talk with the waitress some more or whatever, and then we, you know, and I still even remember the people who were in the room, you know, like we were here by the window, and then over here behind Aaron in catty corner by a window, there was like a woman like in her 40s with a pile of books all on her own, and there was like a middle-aged couple behind me, and I think there was somebody else at another younger couple at this table. Like, you know, I remember all the people that were there, and I knew they could hear all of this, but I didn't care. What difference does it make? My husband's dead either way. So, and there's nothing, nobody did anything wrong. There's nothing to be embarrassed of. So anyway, I just remember being in that space. And then afterwards, we walked across the street to Baskin Robbins, and we got an ice cream cone, as we usually did after we ate Chinese food there. So then the interesting thing, I mean, that was already a meaningful moment for me because of Ling's reaction to Henry's death. And in fact, the next morning, I went over to visit my friend Brigitte, and I was telling her about it. I said, oh, and you know, the waitress was so sweet, and you know, you could tell that she really cared, and you know, was sad. And you know, it was so moving to me that I even commented on it to a friend. So here's the amazing thing that happened. Later that night, I get a call from Brigitte, who I'd been with that morning, and she is like, you're not gonna believe the conversation I just had. I went to the gym, and Like, I pretty much never talk to anybody at the gym, but for some reason tonight I ended up striking up this conversation with the woman next to me, or she did with me, whatever. You know, we're both on treadmills side by side and we started talking. And I had never even seen her before in the gym, but there she is. And she starts telling me this story about how, you know, she and her family have been going through this really rough time, like for the last year. Like, there's a lawsuit with a contractor and it's been super stressful. And she said tomorrow is the day that the judge is going to announce, you know, the decision, and the whole thing is going to be resolved one way or another after this super stressful year that their whole family's been going through. And she said that that stress had really like taken a toll on their whole family. You know, she and her husband, and I don't know if it was one kid they had or two, but you know, that they'd been kind of, you know, crabby with each other and, you know, taking each other for granted, not really appreciating each other, being, you know, stressed out, right? And she said to my friend Brigitte, but you know, something happened yesterday that changed my life, and I am not going to take my family for granted anymore. Because yesterday I was in Jenny Lo's, you know, the Chinese restaurant, and I was eating lunch and, you know, doing some research because of the case or whatever. There was this beautiful mother and daughter there, and the waitress came up, and from what I overheard, apparently the father had just died, and the little girl starts saying, my daddy died, my daddy turned to ashes. And you know, that's such a taboo topic. A lot of people would have shut that kid up and like been really uncomfortable, but not this mom. She was like, yes, that's right, you know, he did die. And they were just like such a loving family, and just something gave me the sense that this man who died was just a really special person. And you know, when they finished eating, they walked across the street to get ice cream, and I could not take my eyes off them the whole time. I just followed them and, you know, was just thinking about them. And all night I almost couldn't sleep. I was just thinking about them all night. And I said, my God, you know, these people have like suffered this huge loss. You know, what about this stupid lawsuit that we're going through is nothing. You know, we're healthy, we have each other, and we have to enjoy all the time we have together and not take that for granted anymore. And, you know, and then of course Brigitte's like, that's my friend Rosemary. She told me this morning that she was in that restaurant and all of that. And, okay, I'm not saying that I really changed this woman's life and after that everything was roses and she never yelled at her husband again, because all of us get frustrated sometimes in any kind of relationship. There's highs and lows, right? You know, as a mom, sometimes you get frustrated with your kids and you yell or you say something you regret or whatever. That happens to everybody. So it's not that I really think, oh yes, I changed her life and from that moment on everything was better. I don't think that. But what I do think is that, you know, there are moments when someone has an impact on us, or there are moments when we see something of somebody else's life that reminds us to try and enjoy our own. And, you know, maybe in that moment I was that for that person. But this is the big takeaway from me from that story. What's unusual is not really that she noticed me. What's unusual is that word got back to me. Because mostly you're in public, they're strangers, you don't know them, you don't talk to them, you never see them again, and you have no idea what, if anything, they're thinking about you. And it could be that unbeknownst to you, you're having this big impact on a person, or they're like intensely admiring you. So that's what's unusual about that situation. It's just that it happened to be, like, I happened to mention to my friend so that my friend knew I had been in the Chinese restaurant. And my friend happened to be on the treadmill next to that woman. They happened to have a conversation. So what's unusual is just that I found out that she had been thinking about me. Okay, so what does this mean? It means that stuff like this happens all the time, but we never know. because the way our social contract is set up, we don't tell each other when we're thinking things about each other. Yeah, maybe sometimes women in the US might say, oh, that's a nice skirt, or oh, where did you get that dress? I love it, or your hair looks great today. And we do that with strangers more than in other countries. But most of the time we don't know what somebody's thinking. And we might be in our own little mental world thinking, oh, I look so ugly today. Oh, you know, everybody thinks I'm crazy because I say all this stuff on Facebook, or, oh, you know, and being self-critical. Some of us, myself included, have the bad habit of being extremely self-critical. So we might find ourselves tearing ourselves to shreds inside our own head. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to us, maybe nobody else is thinking that, but somebody else is thinking, oh, he or she is so handsome, beautiful, intelligent, funny, compassionate. You know, there are all kinds of good things that people are thinking about us that we are never going to find out about. So next time you find yourself thinking that your teacher, some dude on the street, you know, your classmate, your coworker, whoever, when you find yourself mind reading and thinking, oh, they probably think I'm insert negative adjective here, think about the fact that probably many, many times in your life already, and maybe even currently, there have been people thinking good things about you that you never even found out about. There's no way to know what someone's thinking unless they let you know clearly. And even though somebody might think something negative sometime, people are definitely thinking positive things too. So just like the negatives are unknown, so are the positives. So if there is an unknown, you might as well fill it up with positive thoughts instead of negative thoughts. All right, so next week, I think I will maybe try to get back to the book more directly, and maybe I will tell you some story from my adolescence in Kansas City or young adulthood in California. I've been talking a lot about serious psychological topics. Maybe it'd be good to like have some kind of risque story or something to win back people's attention. All right, so tune in next week, subscribe, like the video, blah, 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 and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.